Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I'm your host, Paul O'Neid, and I'm back home in Canada. And I say that semi-excited, semi-not excited, because I love living in Houston, but we're home, we're closer to family, and I am joined. But honestly, I'm honestly remiss to say that I haven't had you on the podcast sooner, because I've known Charlie for like probably close to 10 years now, if not more.
10 years, yeah, more, I think. Yeah.
Um, we got to know each other through the internet and competing in different powerlifting meets back in the day, and we're kind of racing back and forth for an 800-pound squat. Um, since then, it's been quite the journey, and I actually really just wanted to catch up with one of my friends, and I thought, what better way to do it than on a podcast? Dude, thanks for coming.
No, dude, thanks for having me. Yeah. Once again, I'm always happy to do these kind of things, especially with old friends. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, man. So since powerlifting, like I mean, we were both competing at a pretty high level. You ended up totaling over 2000 at 242, right?
Oh
No?
no, I wish. Yeah, I quit before that happened. My highest total was 1925 at
Oh,
242.
so I still beat you.
You still beat me.
Yeah, and I'm still doing it. Fuck you, man. Um, okay, so yeah, you ended up squatting 800 though, which is no
Mhm.
easy feat. Um, and then decided to transition into bodybuilding and like full-fledged 100% into it and doing really fucking well, competing in national level. Like, tell me a little bit about how that transition went about.
Yeah, yeah. So after when I actually left powerlifting, I didn't know that was going to happen. I moved on to more hypertrophy focused training,
Mhm.
thinking that I would give myself some time to get rid of some small injuries here and there, and then make my way back to powerlifting. But the more and more I kind of dived into it and kind of focused more on my diet and just like every other thing that's involved with bodybuilding, which
Yeah.
to be quite honest, most powerlifters should be doing also. But as
Yes.
I dived in, yeah, that's another conversation. But I kind of fell in love with the process,
Yeah.
and I didn't look back. I kind of decided I'm going to go full fledged with this, and then I started. I did my first show a few years back, did pretty well, and then competed in nationals that same year, 2021, at the end of 2021, and surprised myself with first call outs there.
Yeah,
And
dude.
yeah, and since then I've been just kind of like in the off season, you want to call that, and
Trying to
yeah, we'll
grow.
see. We'll hopefully step on stage sometime this year.
Dude, that's exciting. And I mean, I can I can actually speak to this because that path mimics my own to some degree, although like I didn't take the bodybuilding as far as you did, nor do I truly want to. Um, but it is a different process. It's a different mentality. The way I described it to people is they can conceptualize that feeling in their mind of when you unrack a heavy squat and your body tells you not to bend your knees. Going through a bodybuilding prep is that exact same feeling for every part of your life.
Yes,
It's like,
you
don't
nailed
get out of
it.
this chair. Don't take the dogs for a walk. Don't do the cardio. And you just
Yeah.
perpetually have to say yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
And
You put it perfectly. It's 24/7. It
yeah,
is. And even when it's not, even when you're not awake, you need to make sure you're getting that restful sleep too. And once again, I think you and I agree, like powerlifters should also be doing that, but something they don't really think of, or get to a point where their diet's affecting it. So when you're like a bodybuilder in prep, when you get really low on food, your body fat percentage gets really low, and your body's fighting you to actually just get
mhm.
sleep. You kind of have to find ways to overcome that, which sometimes it's an impossibility, but you
It's
have to
like
try.
yeah, it's like high level problem solving for every single thing.
Yes.
And I mean, we could sit here and say, oh, bodybuilding is harder than powerlifting. And I think in some ways bodybuilding is like I found bodybuilding more challenging mentally than powerlifting, but I still do believe the challenge that powerlifting was more physically challenging.
I agree.
Yeah. It's
I think it's that long grind. That's what powerlifting is. But I mean, sorry, what bodybuilding is. But for powerlifting, I mean, to be really good at it at a high level, you need to know how to turn it on when you need to. And that comes in short bursts. And like you need to really dig deep and find that, which a lot of people just never really truly get to.
yeah, I would agree. I would agree. So now, if I'm not mistaken, you were working a normal like white collar job before and
Yeah, yeah,
transitioned into being a coach. Like, how did that
yeah,
transition
yeah. I
happen?
was so way back when I was in finance
That's right. Yeah.
and then marketing,
Mhm.
and I was head of marketing, and then I transitioned into full-time coaching.
Like, right. Like, you're just like, ah, screw this.
Yeah, yeah. Life happens, and I had a choice to either go back into marketing, find a new corporate job, or take that risk and bet on myself in a way
Mhm.
and see if I can do it. I knew I had the knowledge and the background. I've been doing it kind of in the background,
Yeah,
for a while. I think you already know this. Before you officially started coaching, you've coached
for
plenty
sure.
of people just like without any true processes or in place, but you know what you're doing and you've done it before.
Hmm.
But I decided to, it's one of those points where it's now or never, and I just kind of bet on myself, and I'm very glad I did.
So I'm always curious to know because I've been in the public sector coaching at the university level. I've been private sector, white collar job, and then now self-employed. What sorts of lessons do you think that you brought? Because I have a few off the top of my head that I think that you brought, but I'd love to hear your perspective first on like coming from a corporate world to entrepreneurship. What were you able to carry with you into that step?
So, as much as I did not like some of the strict um, rules and regulations and processes and steps you need to take in corporate America, you still need to do that when you're self-employed.
Oh yeah.
But now you need to do it to yourself.
Hmm.
And if you don't have to, but you're just going to make things much harder on yourself. So I think I was very lucky to have been in corporate, America prior to kind of being self-employed as a full-time coach, because I already knew that needed to happen, like deep down inside. Like I was fighting myself on it, but I adapted very quickly. And the first thing I did was map out what I think the process should look like. And then I built that before
Right.
I onboarded the clients I needed to fill the, actual workload and gap in between.
I love that you said that because I think a lot of people they just start coaching people and they don't have any systems and they
Mm-hmm.
end up in this place where it's a jumbled mess.
Oh yeah,
Where if you just took your time and put the systems in place, even if they're not perfect systems, which for all intents and purposes they're not going to be,
exactly.
you have something to change and modify as you gather data.
Dude, that's awesome. I love it. And that's exactly the experience I had where, I kind of started off and I knew my systems weren't perfect, but like you said, now I have something to change. I know the variables change and I've changed it. And if it nets better productivity and better results for my clients on the back end, great. If not, I know to switch it back and do something else at that point versus just,
Yep.
I've talked to so many coaches, that don't have these systems in place, I think are most coaches, unfortunately. And some of them have like, I talked to the ones that have like 15 clients, which is decent size for like an entry level coach, I'd say.
Mhm. Yeah.
And a lot of them are drowning. I'm like, how are you drowning with 15 clients? It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense to me.
Well, I
It's
just
just because,
yeah, sorry to interrupt. I just that just hit me right off the bat because I had a conversation with a coach right before hopping on this call. It was a young lady who wants to quit her full-time job. And I said, okay, cool. Like, how many clients do you have? She said 15, which tends to be the average number of clients that people have when they come to me for like a mentorship program.
yeah.
And I was like, okay, how much she charge? And she told me, and we figured out that she would need to coach 35 clients to be able to quit her job.
Mhm.
I said, okay, how many hours are you coaching a week with 15 clients? And she said, 15. And I said, Okay, so you'd essentially need to double your work hours, which means you're working 40 hours full time and then another 30 plus on your online coaching. And that doesn't even count your content generation, other types of promotions and things like that to acquire those clients. You're telling me you want to work 70 hours a week to quit your 40-hour a week job? And she was like, wow, I see the barrier here. Yep, exactly. So we talked about, levers to pull and things to do. And she was one
Mhm.
who didn't have any systems in place. So she didn't know where the inefficiencies were, where the gaps were. And so I did the same thing, man. When I came from an insurance job. So everything was like red tape.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this needs to be by the book. I need to know like standardized operation procedure for everything. And if someone has a conflict with me about something, cool. I change the SOP.
Mhm.
And then for the next time, there's no issues. Now, I love that you said you made note of the fact that you were in marketing because dude, your social media exploded.
Oh, thank you. I think a lot of it has to do with a couple of viral videos, but to be quite honest, like you said, I think I'm selling myself a bit short.
Yeah, I think
It
so
only
too.
went viral because of the content, but yeah, it kind of grew a lot in the last year and a half or so. But I'm not going to take all the credit on that because my wife is a social media wizard. It is literally a full time job, so we
Oh,
tag team on that one. Yeah,
so you're a cheater.
I'm a cheater, exactly.
Um, okay, so knowing that you're a cheater, let's kind of build out this scenario for people. Could you maybe plot out the roadmap from a high level of, okay, so I decide that it sounds to me like you were given a choice, like an impasse where I either go find another job or I go into coaching full time.
Mhm.
Into I probably have a smaller roster right now. I need to build it. How do I build it? And then how does it get to the point I am today? ASCND Coaching, founder, head coach.
Gotcha. Oh, that's a big question, but I love it. So I think the first and foremost um, that I thought about, to be quite honest, is who do I want to work with down the line,
Yeah.
right? That's number one for me because everything that I do from then on is going to have to cater to that demographic I want to work with. That's not to
Preach.
say that on the that's not to say like on the onset, the only people I'm going to work with is that demographic. I think
Yeah.
as you grow, you can get more specific with who you work with and who you don't work with. I
Mhm.
understand that in the beginning, you have to work with a broader range of people. But I think having the kind of, who you want to work with down the line can impact what kind of content you create and
Absolutely.
what your coaching looks like. So that's first and foremost. And then from there, it's more boring stuff people hate. But I make sure me and my wife, we make sure that we run the metrics of every single piece of content we make, track those things. We track like the type of thing we put out, the day we put it out, the time we put it out, the
Oh wow.
engagement, the likes, all of it, right? And to get a sense of an idea of what the algorithm likes, what people like, what either of them don't like, and then either like you said, those are you're looking at processes in place,
Yeah.
right? And from there, pull one lever at a time and see what works. Up, change the time, or change frequency, or change cadence, and from there, it just snowballed. As you see what works and what doesn't, you can kind of adjust your plan of attack in the weeks moving forward to kind
Mhm.
of make sure you are moving the direction that you want to move in. And another big thing is just planning out ahead. It is not to say that sometimes we are not scrambling to get content done because it's
Of
only
course.
just both of us.
Mhm.
Um, but it is nice knowing that you have like a month ahead of what you need to shoot, what you want to shoot, the script for it, when you're going to shoot it, and so that when the time comes, you're ahead. You just post it. Super easy.
So that surprises me zero because you're a huge fucking nerd. but
As you should.
and you've always been a nerd. So I think the fact that you are so meticulous with this, like there is a reason for the success. You can undersell it and say that your wife is, this social media mastermind, but you still have to do the work. And that's like what you just outlined is not an easy process, right? It's
No.
not, it's very time intensive. So obviously it's become more and more routine now for you to do that. Is
Mhm.
social media your main source of customer acquisition?
At the moment, yes.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
have any plans or like, because I know that you've planned forward. What's what happens if Instagram goes down tomorrow?
Yeah. So the plan right now is to essentially build up an email list
Hmm.
more and more, get and bring the cadence up for newsletters. I'll say first and foremost, I've been slacking on that a ton, and I know that that was the wrong move now in hindsight, right? But better late than never, I think,
Yeah.
and no need to be hard on myself. So I think right now the main goal for me is to make things easy and start off with maybe twice a month, and then go for 3 times a month, and then maybe weekly newsletters, and from there, create more lead magnets or more just CTAs in general on my
Mhm.
website,
For
on my
sure.
Instagram to collect more emails for people that want more information.
I'm glad that you have the foresight to think about that. I always knew that this was important. So we've been building our email list for a really long time. But I went to a conference recently and there was, this thing going around where everyone associated with this one group of people was having their accounts disabled. So there was a single person who was reporting these accounts. And the reason being is because he knew that the population that they came from would be the type that would pay for their account to come back online. So it ended up being the person who was disabling these or re-enabling these accounts was the one disabling.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
insane.
And not a single one of those people, and we're talking people with like 40, 50, 60, 70,000 followers, not a single one of them was worried at all because they
Because
had
they have the email list.
huge email lists.
Yeah,
So they were never selling from the top of their funnel.
yeah,
And but I'm always curious, especially with coaches who have large followings like yourself, if you're have the foresight and the ability to leverage that following to get those leads off of social media.
yeah,
Um, okay, so now I mean, I'd love to know who do you coach, right? Because you're obviously who you are, you're a competitive bodybuilder. Who do you coach?
yeah. Demographically,
Yeah.
so I would say most of them fall between late 20s to mid 40s. I would consider them at minimum intermediate level experience, uh, more towards physique, but definitely want to get stronger. I think a
Mhm.
lot of this is like, generally speaking, a lot of people coach these type of. Maybe I'm just in a bubble, but also surprisingly enough, most of my clients are natural. So, but I do help enhance folks too.
I think and maybe and I echo you in terms of like I think this is what most people coach.
Yeah,
I think people miss the boat. I think a lot of people will say, I want to coach powerlifters. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, cool. That's a market share the size of my pinky nail.
yeah,
Now, what is a powerlifter at the end of the day? A powerlifter
yeah,
is just someone who really wants to train hard to be strong. So what do you care if you coach a powerlifter who actually competes and someone who just wants to train hard and be strong? Are you going
yeah,
to have less fun training that person?
yeah.
And there they go, okay. And at the end of the day, you're training probably mostly men, I would assume.
Yeah, I would say 90% men.
So who have a somewhat intellectual approach to lifting and who want to look good and be bigger and stronger.
Yeah.
Charlie, you're coaching yourself minus the stage.
Pretty much, yeah. And I like that you pretty much nailed in on the hone in on the have an intellectual approach to training. right? Because
Yeah,
that's what I kind of want to get into too. Like, if we want to really dive into the demographic, I think mindset has a big part of that, which, you can only really find once you do a consult call. So all my clients, I I don't, even if they fill out my form and they say, here's money, I don't take it unless I take a call with them first. I
oh
like
yeah, I'm the
I,
same.
I
Yep.
I screen them, right? And the big thing I look for is mindset. So like, someone that is logical, someone that seems to have their life in order, that doesn't have super high anxiety about just things happening because life happens, right?
Yeah.
And I think a big detriment to oneself is themselves sometimes, and people with generally high anxiety around, just their goals and their progress tend to get in their own way. And if it's something in their personality where I see like, oh, we can work together and that we can fix that, great. But if it seems like questions I ask them and just previous experience with other coaches, they just seem to go in the same cycle and over again, maybe I'm not the right coach for them.
Okay, I have two questions to build off that because I think it's
Yeah.
really interesting that you know who you work with best.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do that screening process to make sure that your skill set fits with the needs of that individual.
But
So,
not even that.
okay.
But also on top of that, another big thing there, to be quite honest, maybe more important, um, is not only will they do better with me, but I'll enjoy the time better and it'll take less time
Uh,
out of my day. It's efficiency too, right? Because if I'm dumping too much time, and when I say too much, I mean more than the average, right? Not too much as in like, oh no, like the client doesn't deserve as much time. That's what I'm not talking about. Just
of
too much
course,
as in
yeah.
like more than the average, or like I'm dumping too much of my emotions into it
I
because I'm
think
in a
that's what it
class
comes
doing it.
down to. Emotional
Yes,
bandwidth. Yeah.
exactly. And like, you only have so much. You only have so much. And I'd rather work with 10 clients that pay me half my rate than, you know, 5 clients that pay me triple my rate that just take all my emotional bandwidth for the day. It's either balance things at times.
I hope people stop and really pay attention to that because yes, you are in a position where you can say no to money, right?
Mhm.
Some people are in that, beginner stage and they feel like they need to work with everybody. And to some degree, like you said at the beginning, I do agree. You need to figure out who you
Mhm.
can and can't coach. Where I think it's very important, like maybe you could provide some insight. What have you found to be the most important questions to ask a client during that intake process to see if they would be a good fit for you and vice versa? Top
So,
three. We'll say top three.
big thing for me is a very simple and seem very stupid, but I love this question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you enjoy training? And if it's not an 8 or above, I don't work with them because I don't know. So here's you laugh, but I'm sure you run into this too. And like now it's going to click when I say this, but
Oh yeah.
you've had clients where it's like pulling teeth to get them to the gym.
Yep.
And I think there are coaches that work well with those type of clients. That is not me.
Hmm.
I need to work with people that going to the gym is fun for them. They
Yep.
enjoy it. It is part of their lifestyle, not something that they need to fit in.
The reason I laugh is because I love questions like that are seem so simple and silly, but
Mhm.
actually cover massive amounts of information.
Yeah.
It's like a question like, what was your experience with your past coach
Yeah.
or
That's a big one. I
coaches?
love that one. I love that one.
I love that one too because, well, one, I want to know if like you had a bad experience with that person, but I also want to know, is there a trend here?
Yeah.
And are you
And
the
like,
common denominator of this trend?
there you go. There you go. And a lot of a good thing too is learn from that. You kind of learn more about them as in like who they put blame on too. Like
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes they'll like blame past coaches, but and here's the thing, it may be true, it may be false, but what I really like to see from a client or just a person in general is finding the positives and bringing that to the table and seeing how they can work that into their progress versus hang-ups. And that's another big thing I get out of that question. That seem to get a lot. Um, yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Now, I'm very curious about the competition side of things because listen, I did a show and it was honestly the process to get to the show, it was the same as powerlifting. I love the
Yeah,
training, the competing was like me.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it's like cool, I get to lift heavy once in
yeah.
once a year. But what are you motivated by winning shows or are you motivated by improving your physique?
The latter for sure. But to be quite honest, it probably goes beyond that. Um, I think I'm at a point. Like, it wasn't always like this, by the way, but I think I'm at a point now where I enjoy doing the things that make me happy and ticking up the boxes that kind of put forth for myself, those little tick boxes every day, day in, day out, and sticking with the plan. I think that is the part that brings me the most joy, because there's going to be a time where I'm going to regress, right? And when that happens, like the lot, if I had the the idea that I only did this because I'm happy with the progress, then
Mhm.
logically speaking, I'd be unhappy. But that's not the case. With kind of like the shift I've had over the years, it's just the process itself is
Yeah.
what brings me joy. The journey, and it sounds corny, right? Because you heard that, like it's all about the journey. It's about it is. I think I learned so much more about myself getting there versus like, oh, I got there and I progressed.
It's I find it's an attachment to outcomes. And I use the word attachment very specifically because we not only do we attach some sort of self-worth to that outcome, but we also attach expectations to it. We attach like everything that we do, we expect that this thing is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But we have no actual control over that thing. We only have control over the steps that we take to get there.
Yep.
And if we come back to like your marketing plan, it's just data, right? So
Yep.
if you're failing, you're having missteps, you're not reaching that goal, it's just data. So your process, it changes, but it's still the process. And that was a big eye opener for me because, when we were competing together, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be the best in the world. That's all I care
Yeah.
about, being best.
Yeah.
I couldn't control the fact that my pec tore or both quads tore or I tore my IT band. And I'm like, now I'm the guy who used to squat 800 pounds. So part of the fact that I'm going to be competing again for me is like, can I still do it?
Yeah.
Did I get as strong as I could?
Yeah.
Because I know for a fact that after going through this last, I guess we're over a year now of trying to return to powerlifting. If I go through this entire year process of doing all the correctives, all the physical therapy, all the tempo work, pause work, bullshit, boring stuff, and it didn't make me stronger, I got as strong as I could.
Yeah. And you be happy that you did everything you could do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I all I give a shit about is pushing that rock up the hill.
Yep, yep, yep. Exactly. I love that because like I'm sure you've had the exact same conversation with clients
Yeah.
where clients will ask you like I know you're gonna kind of smile when I ask this. Clients will ask you like, am I doing well? Like their progress, right? Am I doing well? And my answer is always like, did you do the things you needed to do? And if it's no, it's like you could reflect back on that and see where your bandwidth is and what effort you want to put in and complete those things moving forward. If you completed everything you need to do, then you're doing exactly how you're supposed to be doing at this point. There's no well or not well, how you're doing. A lot of it's, due to genetics, right? So you can't really
Oh,
say like, how are you doing? Like, I don't know. You're doing fine in my eyes, but
I
that
think
that's
they're
just
just looking for approval. Like, and this is
yeah,
the hard part because say, am I doing well? In their mind, they're wondering, like, could I be doing more? Should I be doing
yes,
less? Should I be
yeah,
doing, different stuff? Where to you, you understand the process, you understand that it's very long term.
mm-hmm.
So, how do we go about communicating to the client that it's better to do too little than too much? It's harder to pull back than push harder.
Yeah,
that the pace that you're going at is the pace you need to go at, as long as that pace is always forward.
Yeah,
That's a hard conversation.
that's a hard balance. Yeah, but I think what you said right there and just being honest hits
Mhm.
the mark almost all the time.
Did you have any coaches growing up or like starting off in your like in powerlifting or in bodybuilding that really kind of instilled into you or influenced you in the way that you coach others?
Yeah, I think every single one of them to some degree. Um, it's my first coach, just a guy, a man uh named John Pinder. He lived in Myrtle Beach. He probably still does. I don't know, quite sure, but he was my first powerlifting coach, and the thing I took from him was that to do the things that I would expect out of my client. Um, and for me, that's really important. Um, and to also be very true to himself. He never sugarcoated anything, and I really respected that about him. And that's why I think a lot of people hire coaches not only for their knowledge but for them. And I
I
think,
think most people hire people for who they are.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's, I think you might get the initial sale because of something that you do,
mhm,
but I think all of your retention is related to who you are.
yeah,
100%.
yeah. And I have other coaches. One, Tom. You might know Tom. You know Tom
What's his last name?
Butler.
I know of him, I think.
Yeah, other. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He coached me for a bit during powerlifting, and the thing I got from him was to always kind of be a student. He never thought that he knew everything, so he was always learning, and always put his hand up and say, "I don't know that." So, I'll
I,
go try to
I
learn more
so
about it.
value
Or
that.
yeah, it's hard. It's. I'll be honest. I sometimes have trouble with that, and growing up, I've always had that like pushback where if someone would say like you don't know X, Y, and Z, I would just get frustrated versus like you're right. I should try to learn more about it or lead you in a direction of people that might know more about it, which luckily I have this awesome team behind me, to actually lead people towards now. But yeah, it's I think every single coach I've had in the past, I took something from that I now use in my own coaching.
So you have a team of coaches now with you?
So no, team of coaches I like work. So
Oh,
I
okay.
work alongside Team Mule GSP. Uh,
Yep.
as yeah, so pretty much I'm very lucky to be in their circle, and anything related to anything that I don't know, I can point them in the right direction.
Yeah, Broderick's he is an evil genius.
Yes, he is.
I
Yes,
find I find conversations like public like podcasts that he does with people who don't know him.
it's hilarious.
They're so funny.
It's
And he
so
gets so worked up. It's like
funny.
it's like watching one of those wind up monkeys. That's just
Yeah,
like or Jack in the Box. It's like crank,
yeah.
crank, crank, and then he gets mad and explodes, and it's like there are no such thing as side effects.
It's hilarious. If you see them in private, he's exactly the same way. That is not a show, by the way. They'll do that at the dinner table.
Really? You know
Yes.
what? I respect that.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, I want to know that the people that I interact with are the same in private as they are in public.
Yeah. And if anyone, Broderick is the shining example of that.
Um, okay, so let's shift gears a little bit to I want to know what you feel has been the benefit of being a dual sport athlete. Having competed in both powerlifting and bodybuilding, what do you think allows you, either as an athlete or as a coach, or both, maybe one for each, of things that you've kind of brought with you from powerlifting into bodybuilding?
I mean, I think the very obvious one is, knowing how to program for either sport is, that's the obvious one. I think the less obvious one, maybe not less obvious. I mean, to you, it's not less obvious, but to some it might be, is knowing the specific trials and tribulations that powerlifters and bodybuilders go through at
Mm.
certain points in their prep or their meet prep or when things go awry, right? Because that happens all the time, right? And to know what they are mentally going through helps a ton in the way you plan, but also address it. And it's nice to hear feedback and having a plan you trust. First, you trust, and but also that you know that they've gone through the exact same thing over and over and over again.
So there's two things you've alluded to in this conversation, talking about coaching, competing, and the carryover. So the first one was, you mentioned earlier that you need to expect the same thing of yourself as you do of your clients. So I call that being a product of your product. And then there's also the element of, I've been there and done it. So I have a tremendous amount of empathy for the people that I work with. And empathy and sympathy are different. Empathy, you're standing beside the person. Sympathy, you're standing behind them and trying to like push them and motivate
Mm-hmm.
them. I don't believe that a coach should be doing that. I believe that the coach needs to empathize, and the coach needs to be by that person's side as they work through their problems and guide them. If you sugarcoat things, if you don't act in a way that puts your client in a position to be successful and take action, you will not have any results, and you'll just end up with really shitty interactions with people.
I 100% agree with you. I like to use, first off, for that first point you made, where someone that's gone through the exact same things that
Mhm.
um, that you've gone through is I like to like kind of make that like weird, like I'm not sure if it's a perfect analogy, but like if if I were needing to traverse a jungle to a certain point, would I take someone that's well read in the biology and topography and just knows everything about the layout and landscape to take me there? Or would I trust the person that has doesn't know much about it but knows enough about it because he's literally taking people back and forth through that
Mm,
jungle versus the person that's just never done it himself but knows everything about it?
mm,
I'm going to go with the second person all day long.
yeah. I mean, the benefit is we're two people standing on talking to each other who've done both. So I mean, it's
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and that's
And then
ultimately the gold standard.
yeah, and I think the second part too is like like you said, like standing beside someone versus behind them. You know, behind them, pushing them forward. I don't think really if they need so much pushing forward, I don't think they learn much from the
Yeah.
process itself.
Yep.
And helping them side by side lets them to learn and experience everything that's going on. And to be quite honest, if they can, if you're pushing someone along a path and it requires you constantly doing that for them to get through, I think your option there is just to choose another path, a slower one maybe, or an easier one, but something that they can traverse with you and not you forcing them on.
The I like that analogy of like saying either beside, behind, or in front. And it was where I read it the first time when I read Jocko Willink's book about leadership. Um, Not extreme ownership. It was fuck, what's it called? It's right here. Not fuck. Oh, I have it on audiobook. Anyway, he wrote a book about leadership, and he talked about when you're leading from the front, you can't see what's behind you. So I like people who lead from the front exclusively. You're looking at like the person who's a stud athlete and just says, "Do what I do, follow me, do what I do." Then you have the person who's leading from the back, can't see what's up front because they're always behind, pushing. So you want to be that person to the side because you can see what's coming because you've been there and you can forecast it. You know what's behind you and you can have that hand on the person's lower back when they need a little bit of a nudge forward, but you're walking the path with them. Now, I this is something fresh on my mind and it's kind of completely unrelated to the rest of the topic, but a lot of the time I get coaches coming to me about their social media and knowing that you've kind of expanded your social media to a large degree the last year and a half, 2 years, obviously negativity is what draws the most eyes. Being inflammatory draws the most eyes. I feel as though you've done a good job traversing the clickbait with value.
Thank you.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So first, I always want to gotta give credit back to my wife because she helps me a lot with that. Um, but what's that saying? You attract more flies with honey than with vinegar. Is that the saying or
I
something
think it's
like that?
bees. I think it's bees.
Bees, okay, bees. That makes more sense. Why the honey? That makes more sense. Um, but yeah, I find that first off, followers and follower counts. I think I don't think I know it's a vanity metric, right? It can mean something very important, but it can also mean nothing, right?
100%. Yes.
Um, I think gaining followers from inflammatory statements and negativity for the most part can get you a lot of followers,
Mm-hmm.
but followers in itself, if they're not quality followers or people that care about what you're saying to help them move forward or find value in what you're saying or the content you create, they don't really mean much. And I'll be the first one to say my follower accounts. Uh, I think I'm very happy with the growth that my wife and I have gotten so far, and it continues to grow. Um, there's been a small bump here and there, over the years from a couple of viral videos, and those bumps we don't really care about. Like they're like, oh man, you grew 10K followers, like that's great, but it's generally from a piece of maybe content that didn't really bring much value. It was entertainment purpose, right? At
Yep.
that point, it's like there. Here's the thing: some of them might convert to be people that find value in you, but most of them are just there to watch something happen, and that's about it. They were never going to convert in any kind of way for the most part. So I think the slow accumulation of followers from content that is helpful, that is positive, is the better choice for most I think people.
I love asking people questions that, in knowing full well that their answers are just going to reaffirm my own biases. Like I like to create my own echo chambers on my podcast. It's like invite all my friends, get them to agree with me on everything, and then I'm going to take over the world. Um, I'm really happy that you said that because one thing that I found, and I'll use a personal example. People who listen to the podcast know I'm not really afraid to use personal examples within this, but so I sell a mentorship program. I mentor other coaches and I help them build their businesses, doing stuff that we talked about today, systems, processes, everything like that. I get the most sales off posts that get less than 20, then probably less than 50 likes.
Yeah.
They're the videos of me posting grid Zoom conversation grids of me talking about coaching. They're posts about podcast posts of us talking about coaching. They're never the posts that get 50 shares, 100 shares, 50 likes.
Mhm.
Never that. Those never sell coaching. It's always the stuff talking about value. And is it important to have content that is easily shareable, like value, like save worthy, things like that? For sure. But the reason this topic is fresh in my mind is because someone who I respect told me recently that they felt my content was getting really negative. And I was like, oh, I don't agree, but let me take a closer look at this. And so I took a look back and I'm noticing for myself, there is a balance between calling out behavior that you don't think is helpful or appropriate,
Mhm.
but also providing value to the contrary of how we can be better. And I think that's where the value for the individual lies. And something that you do quite often, you'll do like, hey, don't do this instead. Rather than the person who's going to post the inflammatory stuff is like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
End of sentence.
Yeah. No, no, totally agree on that. And
Because I mean,
kind of go back, huh?
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, just go back to the last part. It's like, it's the advice I'd like to give is, do you want content that brings you followers or brings you clients at the end of the day? And then, if it's just followers, then have at it, man. Just do what you want to do and get those followers. But if you want clients, you got to provide the value, and I think overall be a positive figure versus someone that's just there for clickbaits,
I completely
likes and
agree.
stuff like that.
Um, I have one more question before we get. So I like to finish my podcast. It's like a bunch of stupid questions,
Okay.
but the last real question I have for you is: so you've been self-employed as a coach, running a coaching business for a couple of years now. You're, for all intents and purposes, you're doing a fucking fantastic job. You're helping a lot of people, so that's great. What's next? Where do you take it?
Yeah, that's a really good question and something that I still have not decided on. I like to kind of ask people around me, people I trust about like what is that next step, right?
Mhm.
Is it kind of just continuing to help others? Is it, I think you've done something awesome where now you help others, but you also help others who are in your position, or
Yeah,
have been in your position, like actual coaches. Like that's another avenue that I've always thought about. But it's a lot of additional work and other processes you need to put
for
in
sure.
place too. Do I want to expand my coaching to have coaches under me? That's something that other people have brought up, but it's there's a delicate balance, I think, and I'll be very honest. I've always been someone that micromanages maybe myself to a kind of large degree, but like maybe others that work with me. So, but I've been getting better at letting go of that, and I think a lot of that is based on just my anxiety in general around just things. Um, which once again, having my wife help me with social media, at first I was just like, oh my god, what's that? Like,
Yeah,
why are we losing? Why are we getting followers? Like, what's happening? Like, what's and now I don't even think about it anymore. I just do this and like that's doing well, great. It's not doing well, that's fine too. Data, kind of
it's
how you
interesting.
put it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting you say that because so there's a few different ways that I look at growing a business, like the evolution of your business. So you either have a plan and you let that desired endpoint of the plan guide the decisions as you go, or you decide on an ethos, which could just be helping people.
Mhm.
And you make all your decisions based on how can I help the most people in a way that I really enjoy. And neither way is wrong. There are
Yeah.
benefits and drawbacks to both. When we look at coaching, when I started, I mean, I had 75 clients. I didn't need to hire coaches. I was doing fine.
Mhm.
I was coaching, and then all of a sudden, my wife, who at the time I think we were engaged when she came on, to be a coach with me, and I was like, okay, this is way more fun with people. I want to build a team, and now we have a team, and it's awesome. It's not something I wanted when we started,
Yeah.
right? And then it was, well, I've always mentored coaches a little bit here and there. And now I have more people reaching out to me asking them to help them. Maybe I can make this a product. Turns out I fucking love it. So I started doing that. But I also had to downsize how many clients I coach. I can't
Mhm.
coach 75 clients anymore.
Yeah.
So I had to give up something I love to do another thing that I love. And I'm also finding that, hey, like I like doing multiple things. I like keeping it fresh. And it
Yeah.
makes me a little bit better at the things that I do. It also brings with it the time management strategy. So I think
Yeah.
I love how self-aware you are in this situation of like, I don't really work well with others right now, but maybe as I get more comfortable with my own systems, I can pass them along and I won't have to micromanage. And the reason I bring that up is if your name is on the company, anything they do is a reflection of you. And that is
100%.
so incredibly anxiety provoking.
Yes. Yes. And another part of that, I love all that too. And another thing I want to be very, very transparent and honest about too is like how I shift because you can't do everything at once. Just because you're
Of
doing the
course.
mentorship, or like you have something has to give, right?
Yeah.
I need to make sure my balance of efforts and time is moving my income needle. transparent, full transparent. If I'm going to do something too, like I want it to be either next or improving.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know when it became taboo to talk about that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. That's
at
why I
the
just
end
want to
of
bring it up because it seems like it's taboo for some people. So
look, if you want to be a martyr and lay on your sword and say, I want to help everybody and I'm going to charge $4 a month for coaching,
yeah.
you can go ahead and do that, but I guarantee your quality of life will be very poor.
Yeah.
I look at income as a proxy of how many people I can help. I charge what I charge for coaching because I know I provide that level of value and I know that I benefit that person's life in excess of the cost that I'm paying them.
Yes. Yes.
As long as we're looking at impact in dollars as an equivalency, I think we're okay. As soon as you start to chase dollars, then that impact is going to drop and you're going to have a
Yeah.
problem retaining your clients. We
Agreed.
both are on the same page there. I really, I kind of made it my goal to talk to coaches about money more often because I think they're afraid of wanting to make money and providing a good life for their family. And the coaches that do make buttloads of money, most of them do it in really shitty ways.
Yeah. 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 I've seen some of that too. But, you know,
And that to me is the problem. So the coaches that are doing it for the love of coaching and for the love of helping people see these people making tons of money through nefarious means, and they assume that money equals nefarious.
mhm. That's a good way to put it. I think that's true.
But I can like man, we live a very comfortable life. We
Yeah, there's plenty of examples of that not being the case, which I think most people need to see, and the only way to be able to see it is to be transparent about it.
So Charlie, how much money do you make? I'm joking.
I'll tell you, last year my income was the highest it's ever been.
Oh, it doesn't surprise me because you're
Yeah,
doing the right things, right?
yeah,
I'm in the same boat, lives in the same boat. And when you drive, I mean, if there's one thing that I can tell somebody about making money is if you chase money, you'll never have it. If you chase impact, you will never have to worry about money.
yeah.
Let's dive into the stupidity that is these questions that I like to ask. You are notorious for eating boatloads of food just to maintain your body weight.
Yeah.
What's been the highest calorie and carb count that you've had to eat during a bulk?
Consistently,
Mhm.
uh, 340 grams of protein, 1100 grams of carbs, and 90 grams of fat per day.
That's fucking you ate that every day?
Yeah, I think I did that for about 5 weeks straight at the tail end of one of my like maxing phases. It was as miserable as you can imagine.
How did that not blow up your gut?
Uh
Asian
a lot of
genetics.
rice, Asian genetics, I don't know.
A lot of rice. What has been the scariest lift you've ever done in your life?
I think easily that 800-pound squat. Um I know you already know this, but there's something like bodybuilding trainings, it sucks, it's hard, but it doesn't bring the fear in you like having something that can like what you don't like you if you have a breaking concentration for a split second, it can end you right there. That's
Yes.
scary to think about. Versus like there's nothing in bodybuilding training where if I, I can get hurt, sure, but not something that can't end my life. Anna Brown landing right on you, we've seen it, unfortunately in the videos. It's a terrible thing to see, but yeah, having that much load on your back and your body, every single part of your being just says no, 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 and you have to do everything in your power, say yes, 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 and then go down with it,
Yep.
hoping you'll come back up. Oh, that's whew.
Yeah, it's I'm so glad you said that because it was the one thing that I missed. Like I love training like a bodybuilder and I still do a lot of hypertrophy oriented training around
Yeah,
my big three lifts, but it's that fear.
yeah.
It's so addicting.
Oh yeah.
I'm
and do
sure
the
that's what
open
cocaine
pit,
feels
it's
like.
fucking awesome.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. Put it out there. Um, do you crack an egg on the side of the pan or on the corner of the counter? Or sorry, on
Neither.
the flat surface or on the corner of the pan? That's what I would say.
I crack it against another egg.
Whoa.
Yeah. A
You're
big
playing
brain shit.
3D chess now.
Yes, yes. So you don't have to get it everywhere on counters or pans. You know, it drips on the side of the pan sometimes. You're like, fuck. So it's
Yeah.
on the egg itself. And then whichever one breaks is the one you let into the pan.
Guys, podcast done. We just learned. Um, the last question I have for you is if there was one person that you would like to see me interview on my podcast, who would it be? The
Broderick.
caveat is that you have to
Okay.
help me get them on.
Broderick. I'll try to get him on. Yeah.
Okay.
The thing is, Broderick, he won't admit it, but he loves to talk. But you know him. He doesn't like people.
Yeah.
Just not you, just people in general. So, but we'll see if we convince him or to get on your
I would have to
podcast.
do my homework for that one.
Yeah,
I feel like if I didn't do my homework, he would just talk circles around me or would say nothing.
the latter.
He's like, why am I here?
Yeah, I'll chat with him later today and see if we can get him on your podcast.
Dude, I would love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me, man. I've really enjoyed catching up, seeing what you're up to. It's great to see great people doing great things. There's a lot of people in this industry that they see success, they get jealous. I want to share all my friends doing cool stuff. I just fires me up so much. And I'm glad you're coaching. I'm glad you're helping people, and I'm glad you're having fun doing it.
Thank you, dude. The feeling is mutual.
Thanks,
Yeah.
man. Thank you, everyone. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and we'll have links to where you can find Charly and ASCND Coaching in the show notes. And we'll catch you on the next one.